Hi, today we'll get to know how to use a checkbox property in Notion, and specifically we will talk about four different use cases where you can start using checkbox property in Notion. And alongside these four different use cases, we will also learn how we can generate PDF files on automation, that is the documents, directly from a Notion database using an automation tool known as PDF output. So this is the bonus thing that we'll understand along with getting to know about checkboxes. So let us first understand what is the first use case that we're going to discuss today. So we're going to find how do we find the percentage of collection rate of invoices out of the total invoices that we have issued. So what you can see at the bottom is there are two different invoices that have been created over here. One is the invoices database, which has all the details related to invoices. And if I scroll to the top, I have created a summary of the invoice wherein I have created all the things that are related to the invoices, which will be fetching from the checkbox property that we have in this invoice database. So if you look closely in the invoices database, we have the invoice name, the paid column, which is the checkbox property, the invoice date, the due date, the payment date, the amount field, status, relationship field, and other fields. Okay. So this relationship field is something which connects the invoices database to the summary database that we have created at the top. And we will understand why we need the summary database in a while. But first of all, let us understand the first requirement that we have. So we are looking to find the total percentage of collection rate of invoices out of the total invoices. So whichever invoices have been paid, we are looking to calculate a percentage for that specific invoice somewhere in the database. Okay. So the very first thing which we need to do is once you have this property of something like paid, you can create any property of checkbox of like this. You need to establish a relationship property with another database. Okay. So here we have created a relationship property which is being connected with the invoice summary database that we have at the top. Okay. So what we have done with this is we have added all the invoices over here. So if you click on this, you should be able to see it is connected to the summary page that we have at the top. So all the three invoices are linked. And when the invoices are linked over here, we are simply calculating the collection rate over here. So what we're doing is we have created a roller property over here. So this is nothing but a roller property, which is connected to the relationship property that we have over here. Okay, so this property name is linked to deals database. So if you click on this, it will ask you which relationship property you want to establish. So I've selected this column. Then it is asking me which property I want to calculate with. Okay, so I'm just going to select the paid property that we have over here. And then there are several options to choose from. So I'm just looking to calculate the percentage of the value that has been checked. Okay, once I do this, it simply finds how many invoices have been checked over here in the database. So currently two invoices are checked out of three invoices. That is why the collection rate is coming 66.67%. Let's say I only put one invoice as checked, so it drops to 33%. If you put all the invoices as checked, the collection rate increases to 100%. So this is how it works in coordination with each other. So when you mark any invoice as checked over here, it automatically reflects the same at the collection rate on the top. Okay. So this fulfills the very first requirement of how do we find the total percentage of collection rate of invoice out of the total invoice. We simply used the checkbox property that we had over here. We created a relationship property to the other database, and we used a roll-up property again to fetch the paid column from here, and we just use the percent checked value to find the total percentage that has been checked. Okay. So this marks the completion of the very first requirement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the entire text and I'm going to use this strike through. Okay. So once it is done, you can. So now let's move on to the second requirement. The second requirement is how to calculate the invoices that are due today. Okay. So any invoice which are marked as due on the current date, that is today's date, we want to find those invoices. Okay. So if you look closely on the invoices database, you have a column known as due date. Okay. Here we have marked the date for every invoice and we have specified when the invoice is due for payment. Now notice that today's date is 12th of April 2026. So any date which matches with current date, that should be considered as the invoice which is due for payment, considering the fact that the invoice has not been paid. Okay. So let me just make sure that none of the invoices are paid over here. And what I will do is I will simply select the due date of the invoice to, let's say, 12th of April. Okay. So I marked two invoices as due on today's date, which have not been paid. Okay. Now, if you look on the database at the top, we have another roller property, invoices due today, which is showing the value as 2. Okay. If I mark any of these invoices as paid, so this is due today, but it has been paid. Okay. That's why it should not come under invoices due today. But there is only one invoice which is not yet paid, and the due date is today's date. Okay. So let us understand how do we calculate this part. So what I've done is, in the invoices database, I have created a formula over here, which is invoice due today. And inside this, I have used this simple formula. What I've done is I have considered evaluating two things. Okay, if the due date of the property, like this due date, is falling on today, so there is a function known as today, which calculates the present date. Okay, so if the due date is today, and the paid checkbox property, so this is the checkbox property that we had. If this is false, okay, this means it has not been ticked. Had it been ticked, that means the invoice has been paid, right? So if the invoice is unpaid and the due date is today, then only add a value of 1 to this formula. Otherwise, don't add anything. Okay. So it checks two conditions. If the due date of the invoice is falling on today's date, that is 12th of April, and if the payment status, that is the paid column, is false, that is it is not yet checked, that means simply add the value 1. Okay. And that is exactly what it is doing over here. So this checks the payment date, the paid property is unchecked, and the due date is falling today. That is why it is adding 1. This means if I change the due date to something else, it should not consider that value over here. Okay. And what I've done on the top is I have again created another roller property, which I have linked to the main database. And inside here, I have just fetched that invoice due today column, and I've just calculated the total sum of it. Okay. So once you mark the sum of it, what it does, it just calculates the total sum of all the values in this column, and it just reflects that value over here. Okay. So once again, if I mark it as unpaid and the due date is today, it calculates the sum of this column as 1, and it puts the value 1 over here. Okay. If I change this again to another, like due date of today, again unpaid, so 1 plus 1 becomes 2, so the total invoices due today is 2. So this is how we used this checkbox property paid column to determine how many invoices are due today. And okay, the next requirement that we have on the list is how do we calculate the invoices that are upcoming for payment. So any invoices whose due date is in the future and they have not been paid, we are looking to calculate those invoices and find the total value number of invoices for that. So if you again observe, if the due date of the invoice is exceeding the current date, that it is falling beyond the current date. So let's say the due date of the invoice is falling beyond 12th of April and it has not been paid, we will calculate those invoices under upcoming invoices due. So alongside this, what I've also done is I've also considered a timeline of 7 days. Okay. So basically it should fall between like 13th of April till 19th of April, considering 12th of April as today's date. I'm just taking 1 week consideration in the future, and if any invoice is falling within the next 1 week and they have not been paid, I am going to put that under upcoming invoices due. So let's look at the formula for this. The formula remains the same formula like earlier, but we have just added one more condition. Okay. So here we have marked the paid value as false, which means it has not been paid. The due date is exceeding today's date, but the due date is less than the future date. Okay. So the future date is something like today's date with 7 days added to that. Okay. So basically it's 1 week timeline from current date. So this date add function, what it does, it is takes one date over here. So this today's date is current date. It adds 7 days to the current date. Okay, and that determines 19th of April. So basically the due date is falling within 19th of April. So this can be less than or equal to. You can do the equal to symbol as well. So what it will do is it will also consider the 19th of April date. Okay, and the due date is exceeding today's date and the payment status is false. If all these conditions are satisfied, then it should be under the upcoming invoices due. So let's understand how this will reflect. So I've just marked one invoice due date as, let's say, 15th of April, and the payment status is not yet, so it's not been paid. So this should come under the upcoming invoices due. So you can see it is showing 1 over here, right? So let's say I mark something as 16th of April, but I have already paid it. Okay, so this should not come under upcoming invoices due, right? So it is not coming over here. This is how you can simply change the values, and you can check if the formula is working correctly or not. Okay. So here, this is how I'm just evaluating the status of the same. And again, this property is being rolled up onto the summary database at the top. So if you see, we have again created another roll-up value. We have linked to this particular database under the relation. And for the property, we have selected upcoming invoices due. Okay. And under the calculate value, we have just calculating the total sum of this. So what it does is it just calculates the sum of all the values in this column, and it determines how many invoices are under the upcoming due status and it have not been paid. Okay. If you're not sure how to create a roll-up property, simply click on plus and you can just type out roll-up over here. It should be able to show you this roll-up. Once you click on this, you should be able to figure out by selecting the relationship property and by choosing the correct property title and determining what you want to see. Okay. This is how you can use the roll-up property. Just to again brief you on the same. So let us move on to the last requirement. So the final requirement which we have from the checkbox is how do we calculate the invoices that are paid today? Okay, so any invoices which have been paid today, and we are looking to find those invoices from the invoices database. So notice we have a column over here, paid date. Okay, and I put the date over here. So if this date is falling for today's date and they have been paid, then I want to calculate those invoices under the invoices paid today column. Okay, so if you look at the formula, we have the paid checkbox property as true, and if the paid date is falling on today's date, then only I need to add the value 1, otherwise it should be 0. Okay, so this paid checkbox property, if we are marking it as true, which means the invoice has been paid, but the payment date is also marked on today's date, then only we need to add value 1. So let's check this out. So you can notice over here the paid date, it is 12th of April, and the invoice has been not yet marked. Okay, so if you look, it is showing 0, and if I mark those invoices as paid, it will automatically add the value 1 over here. Similarly, the next invoice, the payment date is 12th of April, it has been paid, and it is showing 1 over here. But if I change the payment date to something else, let's say put it as 9th of April, it is not adding the value of 1 over there. And again, we are rolling up this particular column onto the main database on the top, and we are able to find the sum of that. Okay, so we just got like 4 different things out of the checkbox: the collection rate, the invoices that are due today, the upcoming invoices due, the invoices which have been paid today. Okay, all the 4 fields have been calculated with the use of checkbox property, and this marks the completion of the entire demonstration. I hope this explanation was clear to you. Now let's move on to the bonus checkpoint. We are going to also see how we can create PDF files or automation directly from the Notion database using PDF output automation tool. Okay, so there is an automation tool which will help you create PDF files directly inside the Notion database, and this is very handy when you're looking to set up an automation to generate the PDF files. So we're going to use this exact invoices database, and we're going to create. So in order to use this automation, we will need 2 things. We need the Notion database, which we have over here. We will need a Google document, which will serve as a template file. And then we will be able to create PDFs directly within the database, as we will see. So first of all, let me open up the automation tool, which we're going to use. So this is going to be PDF output. So PDF output helps you create PDF files from the Google document directly inside the Notion database. Let me quickly sign in, and then we will see how the automation will work. So I'm going to quickly log in over here, and then we will understand how the automation will take place. So let's click on new automation, and let me give it a name of something like invoice automation. Let me click on create. It will ask you to connect your Notion database in this setup screen. Okay, so if I click on this, I'm able to see all the databases that have been connected to my setup. Okay, but I don't find that invoice database which I was looking for. So this is the invoice database which I need to connect. So I will just simply click on add new database. It will take me to the setup screen where I can connect the database that I have on my Notion account. So meanwhile, what I'll do is I will simply copy the database title. This is the title which I'm using, so I'll simply copy this, and I will go back. I will put on select pages, and I will paste the title over here. Okay, notice it is showing me the invoice database. So let me just check if I'm able to see, and make sure you're under the correct account. So I'm under a different account, but here I'm seeing a different account. So let me choose the correct account which I want to use, and let me click on select pages once again, and let me put the page name inside the search field. Okay, so you can see I'm able to see the invoices database. Click on this. Okay, and I also need the invoice summary, okay, which I'm going to use. So I will just search for invoice summary. This is also what is needed out of the particular requirement, so I'll select this as well. So I needed this database because I'm using a relation property over here. So if you happen to use a relation property in your database which you want to connect, so you need to connect both the databases to the setup screen. Okay, let's scroll down, click on allow access, and now it will give access to both the databases which I've connected, which we can use for the automation setup. Okay, so it automatically starts loading the database which was already connected, but what I want is I want to connect the invoices database. So I will select this database and it automatically starts processing. And if you look over here in the invoice database, it will automatically create additional properties inside the database. So we have properties like generate PDF, PDF file, and Google Drive file, which are automatically added, and it automatically like connects the database over here. Click on next. Next step is adding a document to the setup. So if you click on select Google document, there are 4 ways you can add a document. You can go with an existing document option. If you click on this, you will be able to add any existing document which might be available on your Google Drive. Okay, so let me see if I have any document available for this. So I will just search for invoice, and if I happen to find any invoice, I will be able to use that. So I do have a document available. Let me show you the other options. So if you click on the select document, you have a blank document template option. So if you click on this, it will create a blank document which you can start from scratch. You also have a demo document option, so it will provide you a document with all the placeholders automatically added. Then you have the option of choosing a document from a list of templates. Okay, if you select this, you will get all these templates that are available, and you can search for invoice from here. You should be able to see an invoice populate, and you can click on this and you can use this template. Okay, so if you click on this, it will ask you to create a copy of the template. You can click on next. It will open up this new window. You can click on make a copy, and this will simply create a copy directly within your database. Okay, so this is how it works, and once you close this, it will automatically allow you to select the document from your database. So I'm going to select that particular invoice which I just copied. Click on this and click on select, and then click on continue to workflow. Make sure whenever you are creating a copy of a document, you are connected to the same account which you are connected to the main Google Drive account. Okay, so here whatever account you are connecting, that same account must be connected inside the Google Drive. Okay, that is how it will automatically copy. So as you can see, I have this invoice document which I have created over here, a simple invoice document, and it is showing on the left side, which you can use to create the PDF file. Okay, the next thing that which I need to do is you will have a set of instructions which it will show over here. So basically we need to copy paste all the properties that is available on the right side. So all these properties are fetched from the Notion database which is just connected. Okay, and we can copy paste these properties onto the document to create the PDF file. So I'll just show you a sample by copying few properties and explaining how this automation will work. So I need to get the invoice number, right? So I will just simply search for invoice number if it is available. I think we have not created invoice number field, but let me search with invoice. We have invoice name. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just simply copy this invoice name and put it in place of this. So what I will just do is I'll remove this. I will use the keyboard shortcut Control V or Command V. Okay, so you have the keyboard shortcut Control V or Command V. This will help you copy paste the property directly from the database onto the document. Okay, next is invoice date. So let me copy the invoice date and let me remove this and let me paste it. Okay, similarly we have invoice due date. Let's say invoice due date. So let me find the invoice due date. So it is only by the name of due date. Okay, so I will just search due date. Let me copy this and let me put it over here. Okay, so what I've done is I have simply mapped 3 fields from this particular database that we had used: the invoice name, the invoice date, and the due date onto this particular document. Okay, I'm not going to map the rest of the fields. It depends on your database what you're using. Obviously you can map everything. I'm going to stop here, but essentially these 3 fields will be replaced with the values from the database that we have over here. So once this mapping is done, what you can do is you can scroll down. There are two things to additionally identify. If you want to define a Google Drive folder where you want to save the PDFs, you can click on this and you can choose a folder from here where you want to save the PDF file. Okay, I'm not going to do that. What I'm instead going to do is I'm going to define how the PDF file will be named. Okay, so if you click on this, there is an option of defining how we want to name the PDF file. I want to generate the PDF file by this invoice name that we have over here. So I will simply select invoice name from this list, and my PDF file will be named as per this invoice name. Okay. Once this is done, you can simply click on setup Notion automation. As you click on this, it will create an automation setup which will allow you to generate the PDF directly inside the database. So you can see it has been set up. Now, if you go back to the database, you will find that there are these three columns which have been created by default. Okay. We have generate PDF. So if any record is set as ready to generate, they will automatically be converted to PDF file and stored under the PDF file column using this particular template which we just added. So we have three rows which have been marked as ready to generate. So soon these rows will be converted to PDF file and stored in this particular column. If you would have added Google Drive folder inside the database, you will also be able to see the Google Drive link. Additionally, we have another column, choose document. What this does is like it will allow you to like define which document you want to use for the automation setup. So currently we have only this one document which we are using as the template. Okay, and that is showing over here. Let's say you happen to use multiple invoice templates on the same database. Okay, so as you create multiple automations using the setup Notion automation, all the templates that you are using, it is going to show you one below the other in this option. So let's say you can generate the first PDF using the first template. You want to generate the second PDF using a second template. You want to generate the third PDF using third template. So you have that option of doing that by selecting the particular template from this list. Okay, that is what choose document allows you to do. So I hope this explanation was clear, and very soon we will be able to see the invoices coming directly inside this database under the PDF file column. So let us wait for a few more minutes and it should be able to produce the PDF directly inside this PDF file column. But this is how you're going to set up. So there is also another option of downloading the PDF directly. So if you can click on this, it shows an option of downloading 3 PDFs at a time, which is just for your use case for like testing the purpose. If you have batches of lot of invoices available and you want to process them in batches of 100 records, you can select the second option and to start generating the PDFs in batches. So as you can see, it has already converted these documents as PDFs, and it has completed the process. Okay, and all the PDFs have been attached right inside the database. So if I click on any invoice, it will automatically show me all that invoice with all the placeholders replaced. So you can see it is the first invoice that it has created with the invoice date, due date, and the invoice number. Obviously, we didn't map the other fields, so that it is not available. But these three fields have been replaced from the database that we had created. And if I similarly check the other second invoice, it is also having the same settings, and the final invoice also has a similar settings. So we just created three invoices out of the document utilizing the database options that we had. Okay, this is how you can create automation directly within the Notion database using PDF output, and it works conveniently as per your setup using the database values whatever you have created. I hope this explanation was clear to you, including the checkbox discussion that we had. If you have any questions, just reach out to me at notionformyuse@gmail.com. You can simply head over to PDF Output, scroll down, click on contact section, and send me a message through here. I'll be able to assist you with any queries, or you can directly mail me at